So, well, welcome everybody to this episode of Stories of Transformation, brought to you by I Am the Guru. I'm here today with a really lovely, beautiful human being, Rachel Lewis. And Rachel comes to us from Nevada. And Rachel lives there with her husband, and she is also an expecting mother and about to give birth to her first baby. You're 30 weeks or so, right, Rachel?
Yeah.
32? Okay, yeah. And you just came from the doctor. So grateful that we got to connect and we can share your story with everyone, because you, as I was saying earlier, you have got one of the most inspiring stories of healing, physical healing, that I've ever heard. Because, and I don't know tons about Lyme disease, but I do know that a lot of people, and just also being familiar with your story, it can be very debilitating for people physically, and I'm sure emotionally and mentally and spiritually as well, because of the physical effects of it. And so I really would love to hear from you, and for everybody to hear your story about what your life was like before you had your catalyst of awakening that inspired you to go to Peru and experience some deep transformation there. And so give everybody an idea of your life before that, and then what your life has been like after. And I do know that now that you have, since your transformation, and I'm not sure before, but you've been quite successful in terms of fashion design. You've taken a yoga teacher training, and are you teaching yoga now as well, or were you?
Yeah, up till about a month ago.
Yeah. So yoga, and then and then this whole transformation with the Lyme's disease. So how about we start with you sharing with everybody an overview of what your life was like dealing with Lyme's before you did your healing work.
It was really a life about doctors and sickness, and didn't really have much of a life. I found ways to find bits of life in between there. But really all through, I was misdiagnosed at an early age with mental health stuff, from bipolar to just so many different mental health misdiagnoses, and spent the majority of my adolescence locked up in psychiatric hospitals and institutionalized for a couple of years. And for about 12 years, just on a consistent run of psychiatric medication, heavy duty that, within there though, I got like little peaks of sanity and clarity, and would work with like the mental health system, and I always wanted to give, how I always found that giving back was what helped me. And so even when I was dealing with the mental health stuff, working with the mental health system, being a youth advocate, things like that, trying to give in the ways that I knew what was going on with me, that would help. And then once the Lyme moved from my brain more down into my body, I really just became just in debilitating pain. And once I was correctly diagnosed with Lyme, I went downhill pretty quickly once they started me on IV antibiotics and things like that. I just was really bedbound for about 5 years and in a wheelchair, and did about 7 years of antibiotics, and always listened to what everybody else had to say about me, instead of really digging deeper and listening to what my body was truly saying of what it needed. And ignored that a lot. So, but my life was really about that. And I had gotten to the point neurologically where I was almost catatonic. Like I couldn't really speak, put sentences together. I couldn't really understand what was going on around me. Wasn't doing much.
Mm.
Um, but the 2 years of antibiotics helped me enough that I got to a point where I like went back to school and got my degree in fashion design and merchandising, trying to be creative, find things
Mm-hmm.
that would make me happy.
Mm.
Um,
And Rachel, can I ask, were these symptoms that you experienced the result of the Lyme's disease, or more from the medication, or a combination of both, would you say?
it was really from the undiagnosed Lyme that I had
Mm.
probably contracted when I was about 5 years old. That just
Mm.
it has a monthly hatch cycle. So if you can imagine,
Mm.
it just replicating for my entire life. And
Mm-hmm.
the medication definitely played a role in suppressing my immune system. So I really then had no immune system or fight within my body to fight
Mm.
the infection in any way.
Mm.
So I think that gave it an opportunity to really
Mm.
manifest.
Wow. My gosh. And what was that like for you emotionally, or your like your spirit, you're emotionally like you're a young woman,
Yeah.
to be bedbound for 5 years and in serious pain, and so share with us what that experience was like for you.
It was really difficult. I definitely had quite a few failed suicide attempts and a lot of
Mm.
self harm in there. But I found a really interesting strength that I didn't know I had once I transitioned from knowing that I wasn't actually crazy,
Mm-hmm.
that I was no longer diagnosed with this mental health issue, and realizing that it was the Lyme. I gained a new sense of hope and um, just kept fighting. And
Mm-hmm.
I refused to let the pain take over, because it was um, it's an amazing feeling when once you gain your sanity back. But
Mm-hmm.
once I found sanity again, it like the pain wasn't nearly as horrific as the mental insanity and like not having control over my mind in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that prepared me for the next chapter of like
Mm-hmm.
when it was more in my body.
Mm-hmm.
But I, won't lie and say that I, got through it with no problems. It was a struggle.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And can you share with us what are some of the symptoms? So you said you were in bed a lot.
Yeah. I mean, extreme fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
insane nerve pain in the
Mm-hmm.
body, which is one of the harder pains to treat with
Mm-hmm.
medication.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing would work.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had a lot of brain fog, so I couldn't like watch even a 30-minute TV show and then be able to tell you what happened at the end of it.
Mm.
Severe memory loss. So I had a hard time taking care of myself because I would, leave the stove on and kind of like
Mm.
having a dementia patient.
Mm-hmm.
And just as well as I was starting to have pretty severe seizures and dystonic episodes, which is really where the whole muscular system of the body goes into full spasm,
Mm.
which can be really dangerous because it can constrict the chest, not being able to breathe, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So really just debilitating symptoms where
Mm.
I couldn't care for myself. I couldn't,
Wow.
going to the grocery store was my probably one thing I looked forward to, being able to get out of the
Mm.
house like a week to go with my husband
Mm-hmm.
to the grocery
Mm-hmm.
store. And I'd still have to ride around in one of those little motorized carts,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and be exhausted for days afterwards because
Mm-hmm.
it was, a strenuous activity.
Yeah. How did you make it through school and do all that with? Like, were you receiving some kind of medication that made you feel better or allowed you
Yeah, I
some
will say
capacity
that
to do that?
for sure. After the 2 years of IV antibiotics that I did,
Mm-hmm.
it cleared my brain enough that I was able to go back to school and do about 2 years, which
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still had to be, when everybody else would be on their breaks between their finals, have their week off. I usually spent a week in the hospital because I was just so overtaxed that I still had to deal with everything that was going on in my body, but I was well enough that I refused to not participate in my life. So.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So then you were sharing before we got started in the official recording about a catalyst or something that occurred that really got you to say, hey, look, I need to do something serious here for myself to get well. So do you want to share with us again?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
It is definitely a little easier now having a baby in my belly to
Mm-hmm.
share this. But it was always a dream of mine to be able to, after being with my husband for 7 years and being a young woman, that I really wanted to
Mm-hmm.
have kids, and never thought that to be a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And a little blessing from the cosmos came and surprised me greatly in like November of 2014 that I was pregnant, and I was already incredibly sick and on a ton of medication, and had gone way back downhill at that point again after school. And I had to go to the doctor again and always get the bad news. And they told me, based on the 16 pharmaceuticals I was on, crazy medications, and where my body was, that there was no way for me to carry this baby and survive and have the baby survive. And I was devastated, absolutely devastated.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I had fights with my husband. So I was like, if I'm gonna die soon anyway, can I at least like make something, like bring a life into this world, provide something? And it wasn't rational. So, however, it was the push. This little being was this push that I needed to see that I had really just been waiting in my bed to die, and had accepted that life wasn't an option for me, and that I really, really wanted to experience life, that I really wanted to experience being a mother, or just experience living, and what that feels like. And so that was a huge blessing from this little temporary being that came into my life.
Yes, it had a very special purpose, didn't it?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
after that was when I decided that I had to change everything. So that was huge for me.
Right. Yeah. So then at that point, you said that you got in touch with a mutual friend of ours in Peru.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she actually, I asked her, I was like, you had your healing journey. Do you think it's possible for me to come and have my own? And she was actually very skeptical at first, where it was like, Lyme is a lot different than, what I dealt with is a lot different than what you're currently dealing with. And for me to even consider trying to come to the Andes, and when I was like in a wheelchair and on oxygen and needing to be in the hospital for a week at a time every month, on insane amounts of medication, She's like, I don't see how you coming, 10,000 feet up in the Andes with no ADA compliance, like, is gonna work.
Yeah. You
But
are so freaking courageous, Rachel. Like, to hear you say that, like, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the Andes, and, I appreciate exactly what you're saying. Like, even with like healthy bodies, some strength, it takes a lot to even make that journey to get to Peru, let alone be there. And
there was no way I could even be on a plane for 8 hours. That was even a whole other hurdle that
right.
needed to that she introduced me to another mutual friend of ours, an herbalist, and I started working with her. And
This is still when you're back in the US?
Yeah.
Okay.
I needed to be able to at least even be strong enough to get on an airplane. So the journey started way before I could even get to Peru.
Okay.
And starting to taper down off of the insane amounts of medication I was on, and changing, at that point my stomach was paralyzed. I had severe gastroparesis. So it was really difficult for me to take any pills or eat, food, or I was pretty much living on Ensure at that point, and like couldn't really put nutrition in my body. So had to start on a really diligent protocol where even that was a struggle. Like I probably threw up about 3/4 of my protocol, that it was like I was determined to put this stuff in my body, even though I wanted nothing to do with it. And but I improved dramatically just within that first month, and was then able to get on a plane. I started the protocol in December. And I got on the plane the middle of January.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah. And so share with us, because going, like, again, getting back to this, going from the States in the condition that you were in to go to Peru. And of course I want to hear you to share about your program and what you were coming for, but like, where did you find it within yourself to like choose that? Because that's, first of all, like, just like, again, just getting there physically. Secondly, you're going to a place and going outside of the traditional medical system to heal your body. And, there aren't a lot of studies out there that give evidence of things that work or don't work for in the holistic world. So you really had to have so much faith in the people that you were going to be working with, and in yourself too, and in the herbs that they were recommending, and the work that they were recommending. So yeah, so can you talk a little bit about that?
Totally. It was really it was actually a pretty easy choice for me, because I was at that point, it was either I knew I had to change everything, or I was going to die. So, and everything that I had been doing my entire life had failed. So it was really, I did put a lot of faith in people that I didn't know very well. But I really, at that point, didn't really feel like I had an option. I just knew that I had to do something different. And honestly, that was less scary than giving up on life completely for me. So it didn't seem like that big of a choice.
Right.
However, my parents and my husband were both were like, what are you doing?
Right.
And it was the first time in my life that I didn't ask permission. That I said, this is what I'm doing. I have to do this for myself. And I honestly don't care about your opinion. And that was the first time ever that is where I went with that. And I had faith in this intuition that I knew that what I was being drawn toward was correct. and that, the little blessing that came into my life before that
Mm-hmm.
like woke me up, it was
Mm-hmm.
definitely an awakening. And I was like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I had to trust
That is so beautiful, Rachel, and how empowering. I'm sure, like, did you feel that sense of, like, did you feel differently when you made that decision that came from your truth versus somebody else's truth?
that. Definitely. It
Mm.
was really the first time that I trusted in myself, in my body, that something could change.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, it was always being told to me what I had to do, what I had to take, and none of it ever worked.
Mm.
Like, if I'm going to change everything, the first thing I have to change is believing in myself, and then I can.
Yes. Right. So powerful. Okay. And so you made arrangements and you got to Peru,
Yeah.
and then what happened from there?
Um, well, another friend of ours picked me up from the airport in a wheelchair and brought me oxygen, and
Mm-hmm.
I really just had to kind of hibernate the first month that I was there, and lived in a little garden in Calca, and I did a lot of things to find deeper places within myself, like
Mm-hmm.
meditation and art therapy, and things that started to awaken my spirit. Um, Whereas before, it was my spirit felt like it was dead long before my body was,
Mm-hmm.
which kept me alive for a long time, suppressing expectations, suppressing anything like wants and desires for what I wanted out of my life, um, allowing that to open back up again.
Mm-hmm.
And even the suggestions of like first thing waking up in the morning, giving myself a giant hug and
Mm-hmm.
myself those daily affirmations and looking myself in the mirror, even if I was sobbing doing it because I didn't quite believe it at first.
Mm-hmm.
That like I am healthy and I am beautiful and I am
Mm-hmm.
strong and powerful and a warrior. And like that was so hard, but so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And along with all of the herbs and the diet and teas and the whole protocol
Mm-hmm.
that my herbalist put together for me. I was also working with our friend, doing Reiki and trying
Mm-hmm.
to like move energy and remove some of the blocks that I was carrying, and getting back into creating. Like I got into weaving, like the Andean weaving and
Mm-hmm.
different things that really started to awaken that part of myself that I had really shut down tight for a long
Mm-hmm.
time, which helped other places to open.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I can appreciate how can you, when you're in a lot of pain or you're really tired, even having the energy to do creative things is really difficult to
Yeah.
muster, the energy for that. So it sounds like that space really allowed you to have
Yeah.
that for yourself. And
Sure. And I
yeah.
remember there was one day that was like the shift that I realized that I had shifted dramatically. Was I heard like this amazing Peruvian music coming from, I didn't know where, but it was
Mm-hmm.
somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always had this fear because I would get lost everywhere I went, even if I tried to go on a walk around the block, a couple blocks from my house. I would get lost. Like my brain just couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Created a lot of fear and anxiety. But I heard that music, and I
Mm-hmm.
was determined to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, I trusted, and I was like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
I went out, and it was probably about 8 blocks to the center square.
Mm-hmm.
We were having like a big carnival, and playing beautiful music.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to walk the 8 blocks and find
Mm.
myself there and dance a little bit to the music,
Wow.
the rain, and then find my way all the way back home.
Mm.
And I realized at that point how far I had come.
Mm-hmm.
So liberating.
I can imagine. And how long was that after you'd arrived in Peru and started your protocols that happened for you?
That was about almost a month after being in Peru and being on the protocol for almost 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So really, and my parents also through Skype, I had to have a Peruvian nanny there with me.
Mm-hmm.
She would be with me 24 hours a day, making sure I wasn't having seizures and
Mm-hmm.
preparing my protocol and stuff. But my parents would be on Skype that I didn't speak any Spanish when I arrived.
Yeah.
Out of survival of like needing to ask for the things that I needed, I was speaking, Spanish.
Yeah.
When I left, I couldn't even put sentences together in English. So they could just see actually how dramatic the shift was, which was very cool.
It's incredible. Yeah. And is along with the approach to the physical and then engaging yourself in some of these more like artistic activities, what about some like deep inner work? Like, were you doing any work like that, say with plant medicine or?
Yeah, definitely. I waited a little while after being there to start jumping into the plant medicine because we didn't know if my body was actually strong enough to handle it. And the first ceremony I did actually was with Wachuma with the San Pedro cactus, and had a private ceremony. And actually, because of my malabsorption issue, I took a lot longer for the medicine to kick in. So I ended up, and I was so ready for a journey. I ended up taking way more medicine than is usually prescribed, especially in your first ceremony.
Yes.
However, it was exactly the amount that I needed to take. It was a 36-hour journey.
Oh my gosh.
And it's probably the most intense that I've ever experienced. But it taught me how to move my pain as energy in the body.
Powerful.
Yeah, as well as really connecting with my ability to heal and regenerate, and truly believing and accepting on a totally different level that was possible, and how to let go of this story, this perpetual story that I would tell myself of my illness and the words that I would use, and just opened my mind to how to change the story that I told myself about myself and my journey, and what that looked like, and let go of that and embrace what was actually possible.
That is so huge, like it is so true that a lot of times these conditions that we experience, they do have a component of like a psychological or belief systems, things that we're telling ourselves about healing or about our worthiness or deserving to heal, and so it's really a part of a journey that needs to be seriously looked at or considered. And it's wonderful to hear that the Wachuma did that for you.
And probably the next most powerful was working with Combo, the frog venom, and I had a lot of resistance to making myself feel sicker. We're bringing up those sensations to that manifest in the body from the combo.
Mm-hmm. Because it's very intense medicine for a short period of time, but really physically intense. Yeah.
Very physically intense, and I definitely had a little bit of resistance to that because I
Mm-hmm.
kind of lived in that state 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So once I was starting to feel a little bit better, it was difficult for me to know that like that's what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And but soon realized after work, and that was a whole lesson in itself, was to willingly go into those sensations that I so desperately was trying to get away from,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
and finding a whole new strength with that, and surrender as well.
Mm-hmm. And trust, like to trust in the medicine and the person offering it to you or recommending it, and
Right.
in your body to receive it also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that was a huge, whole other part of my healing journey, was working with combo, and
Mm-hmm.
really finding that the benefits of detox, and
Mm-hmm.
allowing those amazing purges to occur within the body. Um, and I think after about my third combo session was the first time in as long as I could remember that I had enough energy to go and like hike a mountain. So
That's amazing.
that was about 2 months after being in Peru.
That's amazing. Like you come to Peru literally like in a wheelchair and you within 2 months you're hiking a mountain.
Well, and even a smaller milestone I remember was I was at a birthday party of a mutual friend, and I was helping to blow up balloons, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, Rachel, do you realize what you're actually doing right now? And
Mm-hmm.
like, no, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you came on oxygen and you are now blowing up balloons at over 10,000 feet in altitude. And I was like,
Wow.
so milestones like that I don't even
Mm-hmm.
think that I realized that
Mm-hmm.
until they were pointed out to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, like how amazing is this progress? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So approximately how many times how long did you work with the combo for?
I worked with the combo for 8 sessions,
Mm-hmm.
and I spread them out to about once a week.
Okay.
And towards the end, it definitely tapered down a little bit because I ended up getting Giardia, and that was a whole other fun thing. But
Oh, one of the risks. Peru, yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that was the protocol
Mm-hmm.
that I was on, and
Mm-hmm.
which I highly recommend for people
Mm-hmm.
with physical ailments, especially Lyme, like things that really need detoxing within the
Mm-hmm.
body.
Right, right. And were there other plant medicines that you chose to work with as well?
Yeah, I waited quite a while before I worked with ayahuasca as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I did work with San Pedro with Wachuma almost once a week. Uh,
Okay.
I worked with that spirit quite a bit, and it probably
Mm-hmm.
became one of my biggest teachers while I was
Mm-hmm.
there, with so many things, like more than
Mm-hmm.
I can talk about. Um, but I also was dealing with quite a few, with a lot of trauma that I had experienced throughout my life, whether it was within institutions that I was in,
Mm-hmm.
or really just having people not believe the amount of physical pain that I was in, and
Mm-hmm.
putting it on other things, and the trauma that would create as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and working with the wachuma and the ayahuasca simultaneously actually helped me to release that trauma in such amazing and unexpected ways, and really made my being whole again. and call it, you know, having Reiki sessions, intermittently calling back pieces of myself that I had lost along the way, and really making myself whole again in all of the ways that I could.
Yes.
So that was really neat.
Gosh, yeah, such powerful plants, aren't they, to do exactly what you said. They to help make you feel whole again and reconnect with parts of yourself you may have lost along the way because of various experiences of trauma. And yeah, so grateful that you're able to find those plants and work with them the way that you did.
And one of the biggest things it taught me too is that I, you know, because I had so much trauma and a lot of things that were going on for me, my first ayahuasca ceremony, I wanted a support person there with me. And I thought it was going to be a small, intimate ceremony. And everything that I had expected about this ceremony was the total opposite. And which was exactly how it was supposed to be. And my support person didn't show up, and the Maloka was full of over 50 people because it was a full moon ceremony. And
oh my gosh,
it was like circle within a circle.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know what to expect at all. But I know I'm supposed to be here. And if I'm not supposed to be here, then my body will physically get up and leave. And I sat there, and I ended up trusting with all of my being in this medicine. And because I did that, she actually gave me a very, very gentle ceremony. I actually didn't feel like I felt any effects from the medicine. I even got up and got a second dose because I was like, why isn't anything happening? And I just had a really peaceful ceremony, listening to everybody else, not necessarily having the same experience.
Sure.
And I trusted, and I had full faith, and I walked home that night from Terai, which is probably from Terai to Pisa, to Pasi Luz, actually. Almost like about a 2-mile walk. And which for me is a long way. And it was just under the full moon light, and walked home after this ceremony and really had one of the most integrative experiences that I could have ever imagined.
In what way?
Really just without even thinking, almost feeling like this neural connection within my brain reconnected to my body, like my body reconnected to my mind, and was able to access a lot of the traumas and things that I had experienced without judgment, and see my life for what it was and is, and not have any real thoughts or anything around it, just being able to observe from an outside perspective, and be totally okay with that. And know that whatever was going to happen, that was how it was supposed to be. So that was, and I ended up having a Wachuma ceremony. That was Friday. I had a Wachuma ceremony that Sunday, and within that ceremony is where I really feel like that weekend I feel like I did the most healing, almost in the entire time that I was there. That I, for the first time, heard within my being, like, you are strong enough to do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that I came to Peru alone. I showed up for a ceremony alone. There's no reason why I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really show up for myself and
Mm-hmm.
um, just do this journey for me and
Mm-hmm.
because of me, and that I was worthy of that.
Yeah.
Strong enough for that. So
That's so beautiful, Rachel. Yeah. And it's so true, about the plant medicine, how it has that capacity to allow us to really see things without judgment. And that's where the healing occurs, because then it becomes just an experience, and it's not attached to anything that then, creates something within our bodies as a result. So yeah. So I'm so grateful to hear that occurred for you.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't in. I stayed in Peru for a while longer after that. But I really felt like at that point I had come
Mm.
past the point of that I could handle anything.
Mm-hmm.
That no matter what else was put in my path, that I was no longer going to revert back
Mm-hmm.
to the severity of where I had been.
Right.
There was always a place for healing,
Mm-hmm.
and to not get in my own way of that.
Yes.
And I ended up towards the end of my journey doing another thing that scared the crap out of me,
Mm-hmm.
and that was hiking up to Pumacocha.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a 12-mile hike, and I needed to prove to myself, like,
Mm-hmm.
the strength that I had, and physically and emotionally, and ended up going with one other person, and we hiked up to
Mm-hmm.
Pumacocha together. And as I got up to these lagoons up at the top of the Andes, I was just let my soul just kind of be at ease,
Mm-hmm.
and realize that I could do anything I put my mind to. And that came in handy, like, later on down the road, when, like, contracting tetanus and, like, getting really, like, my journey wasn't over.
No.
It never is.
Mm-hmm.
But dealing with some of the even more difficult situations that were to
Mm-hmm.
come, having those experiences and realizing that no matter what came my way, that as long as I approached it without expectation or judgment of myself, that anything was possible.
So you are just such a fantastic example of that, Rachel. And I'm getting a little emotional because I'm really feeling so much. Like, it's very symbolic, like you've really had to climb a mountain, a huge mountain, and you made it. You made it
That's
to the
why
top.
her name is going to be Everest, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, because it really was my catalyst.
Yeah.
Like, this little being that came was my catalyst to climb this mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like my tallest mountain to get to.
Yeah.
So it's very symbolic for sure.
Yes. And like, how did that feel when you were there at the top of this mountain, and it's like almost like you can look down and see all the years that you went through, all of this incredible pain and hospital visits and just incredible suffering, I'm sure. And you're looking down and you're like, you just climbed a mountain. So, like,
very empowering, and a little surreal, for sure. I think I don't necessarily think I realized the accomplishment until I got all the way down and back into my little place in Pisac. And once I got back, I definitely, once I was kneeling at those lagoons though, it was, I just kind of kneeled there and sobbed and like let go of a lot of the pain. And just fully embracing this inner strength that, even, you know, within the hike itself, like there were points where I had to kind of put my mind aside, and with all of the little voices that always say like, I don't know if this is a good idea, and maybe you can't do this, and but to just trust what happens when you put one foot in front of the other, and ignore everything else.
Yes.
That was in a very realistic way to show myself that is, you can make it to a destination. You have the mental capabilities of putting aside the peanut gallery and doing it.
Yes. There's another voice inside there that's telling you the truth. And you listened. Yes. Yeah.
But I think it takes a lot to quiet everything else, and then just be like, to trust, find that trust and space that anything is possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And during your time there, were you doing some other things like yoga, or anything like that?
Yeah. So when I was hibernating in my little garden in Calca, is actually when I began my daily yoga practice. But in the beginning, it was definitely me just sitting on my mat doing like seated poses, and just starting to move my body. And that's definitely where that practice began. Finding stillness within the breath, and which also helped me with meditation as well.
Right.
Finding those practices be held hand in hand with each other.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And so you, in total, you spent, how long was it in the Valley? 6 months, or in this particular program?
About 4.5 months.
4.5 months. And then what happened from there? You went back to the States?
Yeah, I came back to the States, and it was actually pretty difficult coming back. I definitely had to let go of a lot of the PTSD and stuff that I had, back to this same environment.
Sure.
And also because I treated the Lyme so much in Peru, I didn't actually treat a very specific co-infection called Bartonella.
Okay.
That really reared its ugly head when I got home. And so I had to then pick up and treat this other infection, which is one that really, really stirs up a lot of those mental health symptoms, like that I was almost more afraid of than anything. So to be able to come back though and sit in a restaurant with my mother after she had witnessed me like crying in the shower for days, you know, and she was like, do you need to go back on medication? And I was like, have we not learned anything? Like, have you not seen like my journey and like what that not trusting in the process actually does? And so I just let whatever needed to come out, and I had more coping skills at that point, and trusted in the herbs that I was taking, and it took about 2 or 3 months actually, once again from like being knocked down as soon as I came home, to have faith and really trust the process, and got through that little bit, and still really needed to continue on the diet and herbal protocol for quite a while, about a year and a half after that. However, I pretty quickly enrolled in a 200-hour yoga teacher training program to kind of keep me focused within that time frame, and really, really dove into my yoga practice, which helped a lot with the kind of psychosis that was being brought up with the Bartonella. So really just found this groove that I tried to get myself into, and not let myself fall back into that story, which I knew wasn't true anymore. Yes.
And I'm sure that would be an easy route, an easy way to go, or easy to fall back into, because you're in this environment. Although you've changed significantly because of everything you've been through, your environment didn't change. The people that you are close to didn't shift necessarily. So yeah, like that, it can take something to come back and integrate into that environment. Yeah, definitely. So you completed your yoga teacher training.
I did, and I ended up doing a Peruvian inspired collection. I showed it Sacramento Fashion Week, and really just tried to jump back into life and like make up for lost time. However, that was also a little bit of a struggle because I wanted to do so much that I felt like I had missed out on for so long.
I can imagine, yeah.
So I kind of bit off a little more than I could chew, and that was a whole other learning process of like balance and how to maneuver still in a body that I had to be reasonable with. I had been sick my whole life, and I just was seeing the beginning of what a strong, capable body looks like.
Right.
And had to really find that balance and not overdo it, which I was definitely doing.
Yes. Like being born again and learning to walk and talk and all these things.
I know how to walk, so it was kind of like that.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us about life right now. What's happening for you right now, and what does it look like?
So when I did come back, I started working with people as well that had that were in the same position that I was in, of not being able to heal from Lyme within the Western world. And I ended up bringing somebody back to Peru with me last year and helping her find her journey. But finding a lot of struggle and realizing that I wasn't necessarily prepared for everything that came my way, and really tried to give faster than where I still needed to be taking care of myself. And now I've stepped kind of into a coaching role. Instead of trying to be all for somebody, and just sharing from my experience, and which is all I could do really, but was trying to do more before, and coming from a place of just sharing my own experience and coaching people that need it.
Wonderful.
And teaching yoga, and I actually have kind of settled into the niche of yin yoga, which is more healing and restorative for people, and finding that helping others, allowing them to find their own place of healing has been really beautiful. And I did my 300-hour teacher training as well, so I was able to get a little bit more experience within the yoga world. And now I'm really last summer decided to live the summer that I never got. I was like, you know,
Aw.
which was amazing. I traveled everywhere and did all the festivals, um, and at the moment, I'm really grateful that I did that. And
Mhm.
this little one was at the Eclipse Festival,
Uh-huh.
and so she's a little eclipse baby, and just getting excited that I finally am able to live. Um, I never wanted to embrace that word normal,
Mm.
but really just like a normal life. Like I bought a house
Mhm.
last summer, and I'm starting to settle down and be able to experience life for the first,
Mhm.
what that truly entails, even if it's just, I don't know, building this small little family.
Yes.
So
Aw. I am so incredibly happy for you, Rachel. And I just, it's to me, it's sometimes really just even hard to believe that this has been your experience and what you've actually gone through and overcome. Yeah, it's tremendously inspiring. And it's really wonderful to hear that you're helping other people as well who are dealing with Lyme, because I think it can be quite an isolating condition to have to deal with. And I can appreciate too that because maybe not a people, and even the medical system not being able to properly diagnose it, that probably translates into also a lot of people around you who didn't understand what was going on and couldn't understand, why don't you have energy to do things, or why can't you be normal? Like, so I'm sure that the work you're doing is going to be very supportive and beneficial for many people out there. So yeah. Is there a way for people to get in touch with you if you, like you said, you were doing some coaching? So what is the best way for people to reach you?
I have a Facebook page called Lyme to Life, LYME to
Hmm.
Life.
Okay. To life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Also through Life Warrior Yoga, and both of those have Gmails. So just Lyme to Life or lifewarrioryoga@gmail.com. So
Okay.
just anyway, send you a message. Well, I don't know if I promised to respond so quickly lately.
Right.
As I have a little bit more. Actually, this pregnancy has been kind of difficult as well. It's been a whole other tool to
Hmm.
not revert back into this fear place.
I'm
Uh,
sure.
Trusting that my body is capable of all that it's supposed to accomplish.
Yes, yeah. I know what that's like, like you get a pain in somewhere and you're like, is that the Lyme? Is it, and it's, so yeah, there's a bit of a process of overcoming paranoia once you've been through a really serious a health situation, that's lasted a long time. I can relate. Yeah. Well, thank you so very much, Rachel. This has just been a tremendous pleasure for me and gift to have you share your story with us in this way. And yeah,
Thank you
thank
for having me.
you. Yeah, thank you.